spoil sport, Pakistan's boycott theatrics. Pakistan government asks PCB to not play India match. Staged cowardly World Cup walkover. Crippling ICC sanctions loom for Pakistan. ICC selective participation to not sit well. Pakistan's India boycott in T20 World Cup. That is our top focus on 5 Live.
That walkover, first it was Bangladesh, then it is Pakistan. What exactly is going on? Why has the yards of cricket turned into an absolute battlefield between countries and neighbours? That will be a top focus here on 5 Live. I'm Sonal Mehrotra Kapoor. The T20 World Cup 2026 has turned from a cricket tournament to a battleground. It started with Bangladesh, now it is Pakistan. What was meant to be the T20 World Cup 2026 is fast turning into a test of who really controls world cricket. After objections raised by the Bangladesh Cricket Board earlier, the spotlight is now firmly on the Pakistan Cricket Board. Islamabad has directed the Pakistani team to boycott the high-voltage World Cup clash against India scheduled for the 15th of Feb. A move that has pushed cricket's global governing body into a bit of a corner. The clock is now ticking for the PCB, that's the Pakistani Cricket Board, to formally communicate its position to the ICC. A decision that could trigger consequences far beyond this particular match. The ICC has made it stand pretty clear that selective participation strikes at the very foundation of a global tournament. You play the World Cup as a whole or you don't play it at all. Now, sources indicate that Pakistan could face serious sanctions, from isolation in future tournaments to loss of hosting rights, even the threat of losing its annual ICC revenue share, which is $34 million. So what happens when governments step into the pitch and redraw cricket's rules? Is this about political power or the future of international sports itself? What lies ahead for Pakistani cricket and for the World Cup as well as an institution? We'll break it down for you on the program, but first up, take a look at this report.
India versus Pakistan, cricket's biggest rivalry. But now the fate of the match, scheduled for February 15 in Sri Lanka, hangs in the balance. Pakistan has refused to play against India in the T20 World Cup. In an unprecedented move, the Pakistani government confirmed its participation in the T20 World Cup 2026, but announced that it will boycott its group stage match against arch rivals India. On the other hand, Team India is all set for the match. India Today Inside Scoop reveals that Team India will go ahead with the pre-match press conference and continue practice exactly as scheduled. The squad will travel to Sri Lanka on time and follow every step laid down by the tournament guidelines. However, the BCCI is awaiting the final decision of the ICC.
ये बड़ा ICC का स्टेटमेंट आया है जिसमें उन्होंने खेल भावना को लेके कहा है, तो हम पूरी तरह ICC से सहमत हैं, और लेकिन हम BCCI इस पर भी कोई टिप्पणी नहीं करेगी जब तक ICC से हमारी बातचीत ना हो जाए.
The ball is now in International Cricket Council's court. The ICC is expected to call a board meeting to discuss Pakistan's threat. Meanwhile, ICC is also considering action against Pakistan. If the boycott row escalates, ICC can tighten Pakistan's bilateral calendars, limiting future cricketing engagements. ICC can also make it harder for foreign players to receive clearances to participate in the Pakistan Super League. Pakistan may even lose hosting rights for future ICC tournaments. Once again, this controversy has given opposition fresh ammunition to corner the government over sporting ties with Pakistan.
पीसीबी ने जो किया है वो बीसीसीआई के मुंह पे तमाचा है और वो देशवासी जो उम्मीद कर रहे थे कि बीसीसीआई कोई स्टांस लेगी, बीसीसीआई को दिखाया है कि पेनल्टी स्पोर्टिंग कमिटमेंट सब एक तरफ और देश की इज्जत एक तरफ।
अब बताइए पाकिस्तान को ठोक कर जवाब क्यों नहीं दे रहे आप? मतलब पाकिस्तान आपको मुंह चिढ़ा रहा है और आप में जवाब देने की हिम्मत नहीं है। इससे ज्यादा कोई दुर्भाग्य हो सकता है? आप क्यों नहीं जवाब दे रहे? पाकिस्तान की बांग्लादेश से शाहरुख खान ने एक वो ले लिया तो एक हंगामा बरपा था। अरे अब हंगामा करो ना।
An India-Pak match is the biggest money spinner in cricket with TV advertisement revenue of rupees 150 to 180 crores, digital advertisement revenue of rupees 100 to 150 crores and up to 50 crore TV and digital viewership. Bureau Report, India Today.
All right, Nikhil now joins us for more on this. Nikhil, this was the fear, right? This is exactly what we discussed when the first time we discussed, the boycott by Bangladesh. He said that this could snowball. How about others reacting in the same way? And here we are. Before we go ahead into discussing what players want, what's good for the sport, politics, all of it, just tell me, what exactly do ICC guidelines say on something like this? Or is there no guideline existing on a situation?
No, there's no guideline as such, Sonal, on what happens if a country has to decide not to play one particular encounter. It's happened in the past, but those were different circumstances. And for that, there was prior permission that was taken by the ICC. People refer to the 1996 World Cup, 2003 World Cup, even the 2009 T20 World Cup that happened in England. But on all those occasions, the difference was that either there were security concerns or there were diplomatic issues between the two teams. Here, that is not the case because, for one, you're playing in Sri Lanka and there is no security concern when it comes to Pakistan playing in Sri Lanka because they'll be playing the rest of the matches there. So that is out. Then the diplomatic issues that arise between two countries, that is not the case because Pakistan is not saying that they're playing India because they have an issue with India or their relations with India aren't great at the moment. That's why. They are actually saying we will not play versus India because of what has been done to Bangladesh by the ICC. So in both these scenarios, I think this is going to be very tough to cut any sort of mustard with the ICC. And that's why I think the ICC will have to take a call. What typically happens here, the ICC board will have to meet, and that I reckon will happen probably post the T20 World Cup. For now, you might see a scenario where Pakistan doesn't play the India game, which means they give those 2 points away to India. Also, their net run rate takes a massive hit, and which will make it very difficult for them to progress through into the tournament. They might just be eliminated in round one, as it happened in the last World Cup. But be rest assured, the kind of step that they are taking, I think I can call it a misadventure at the moment because they are definitely going to be sanctioned monetarily as well as in terms of cricketing, logistics as well going forward because bilateral series will be hampered. Their own league in PSL will be hampered. And of course, as I said, monetary sanctions also coming their way.
You're pretty confident that sanctions are going to come their way. But help me understand this. How exactly are Pakistan players seeing this?
Well, we've only heard from the Pakistan captain and he said, listen, we abide by what the government says and what the board is doing. But let me just put it into perspective what happens to Pakistan cricket. And two very important bits. See, Pakistan cricket at the moment is no match to India. Anyone who follows cricket knows that. Why is it that India has gone so far ahead and Pakistan is lagged behind? Though at one time there used to be very close encounters between the two countries. That's because of the terror attack that happened in Pakistan in 2009. After which international teams stopped going to Pakistan. So for a decade and a half, they didn't have any international cricket being played in Pakistan. Now, slowly and gradually, they've come across that. They've started having international cricket return. The PSL has started. Now what you're risking is, you are actually, it's not, and you need to understand the context, it's not a fight between Pakistan and India. What Pakistan has done is actually fighting the rest of the cricketing world. Because what is the issue that they're not playing the India game? They're saying that you've done injustice to Bangladesh. Who did injustice to Bangladesh? Not India. 14 boards voted in favor of Bangladesh not playing. So what Pakistan is effectively saying, the rest of the cricketing world is wrong. So what happens in the future? India, Pakistan don't have bilateral series. Do you think from here on you are going against the decision taken by the Australian board, the English board, the New Zealand board, the West Indian board? They all were in favor of Bangladesh not playing. You have an issue with that. Will bilateral cricket once again stop happening in Pakistan? Something that took their cricket back to the ice age. Will that happen once again? Yeah, that is a probability. PSL works because of players that play from the rest of the world, not just Indian players. Will those boards now give NOC to their players to go play the Pakistan Super League? I don't think so. They're risking all of that simply because they have said that it's not been done right for Bangladesh. But truth be told, Sonal, it cannot be. You cannot be standing up for Bangladesh. That can't be the reason. I mean, we all know this actually boils down to what happened between India and Pakistan. All things that went down in the Asia Cup, whether you didn't take the trophy, didn't shake hands. I think that is the crux here. Now they're actually firing the gun on Bangladesh's shoulders, saying we'll not play versus India.
Yeah, but what exactly is Pakistan cricket board really thinking, and what are the politicians thinking? What exactly do they stand to gain by all of this? They are in minority very clearly. Their cricketers lose, their country loses ranking, revenue, all of that. What exactly are they thinking?
As I said, I think this is two things that you can look at here. One is, of course, the personal ego of the man who's heading the Pakistan Cricket Board. He also happens to be the Interior Minister of Pakistan, which is like, you know, the equivalent of our Home Minister. Now, he, remember, was the person who was standing on the podium and India refused to take the trophy from him. So he still kept the trophy in the office of the UAE cricket in Dubai. So that one incident. Of course, we know that they weren't very happy with Indian team refusing to shake hands. So either it could be an ego of one individual. The other thing that you can look at it, because it's the government that's taken a call, it could be a geopolitical sort of a, you know, extending of a hand of friendship towards Bangladesh. Maybe Pakistan perceives, we've heard it from the Indian government, that Operation Sindoor is ongoing. Maybe they foresee some sort of skirmish at the border. So, you know, to have another ally in Bangladesh to open two fronts versus India. So it could be a very political decision that they are taking at the moment. But they are sacrificing cricket because, as I said, apart from the sanctions, let me tell you what is going to be the immediate impact. I'm going to sum it up in a couple of sentences. See, total revenue that comes from the ICC is $600 million. India get 228, the lion's share of that revenue, $228 million. About $55 million is what Pakistan gets. Now, everyone will see this figure and say, listen, Pakistan has done it. India stand to lose far more than Pakistan, 200 plus million dollars. We just have 50. But what you forget is the minute details. That $55 million that Pakistan gets is about 70% of their total cricketing revenue. The $250 plus million that India gets from ICC is less than 10% of India's total revenue. So what happens? India stand to lose about 5% of their total revenue. Pakistan is closing in on 70%. Who is it going to hurt? It's going to hurt Pakistan. And just one final question that I have, and I've been to Pakistan. I know the people in Pakistan love their cricket. Some may be high on ultra-nationalism. But there's one question I think they should ask Mr. Naqvi, and that is that when all things were being done to Pakistan, not shaking of hands, not taking the trophy, even then Pakistan said, no, we will play India. So they were okay playing India even when they felt hurt. Now it's happened to Bangladesh, and Pakistan is saying we will not play India, risking their chances of not just sanctions, of going through in the tournament. How must a Pakistan cricket fan feel at the moment that you are sacrificing their cricket for your personal ego, or maybe it's geopolitics?
Yeah, but Nikhil, this is then clearly a case when the government is overruling a cricket board, overruling a cricket sentiment in the country of the players. What ICC can barely do anything. ICC can just confront the state, or it can't even do that, right? It can just punish, and in some form or the other, you're punishing the sport, aren't you?
Well, unfortunately, that's how the cookie crumbles, Sonal. It is incumbent on the board of that cricketing nation to convince their government, help them see what is it that it's going to do to cricket. But, it is unfortunate, but we've seen the sport of cricket being sacrificed at the altar of geopolitics. Not now, it's happened for a very long time. I mean, as we speak, Pakistan took that decision of not playing India. On that day, that is yesterday, Pakistan were playing an under-19 Cricket World Cup match versus India. You'll have a scenario where Bangladesh is not coming to India for the World Cup, but their shooters are going to be traveling to India in a short while from now to participate. I must also tell you India's stance as well. India refused to go to Pakistan to play cricket, but India sent its bridge team, its squash team, in fact the Davis Cup team as well, traveled to Pakistan about a year and a half ago to play a tournament there. So I think it's only cricket because that grabs all the eyeballs, and politicians, like to make a statement, and that statement is only made when you get cricket involved. And so a lot of times you've seen cricket being used as an instrument of politics, and that's exactly what's happening in this case as well.
Nikhil, every time you say this could happen, it actually happens. So requesting you to not. Just hoping perhaps that it does not manifest itself in other ways as well. But last question I have, in a crisis like this, does it really expose the role ICC plays? Can it at this point, like if say example of somebody who's an ardent cricketing fan, what do they expect ICC to do at the moment? To sort of drive some sense into Pakistan, build consensus, or say, no, rules are rules? What exactly should ICC be doing in the interest of the game?
Well, that's very interesting, Sonal. I must say, and I'm going to compliment ICC on that, they have exercised a lot of caution. If you look at that press release, they've exercised a lot of caution. They've been very patient. They were patient with Bangladesh as well. When Bangladesh said they don't want to play in India, they didn't, just took a high-handed decision immediately. They, in fact, had a couple of meetings with them over video conferencing, traveled to Bangladesh, tried to see them the bigger picture, but it didn't happen on that occasion. And similarly with Pakistan, if you look at the latest release, they say that this selective participation is against the spirit of the sport, it's against the sanctity of the sport. Towards the end, they say that we would like Pakistan to reconsider, see that it's going to be, affecting the sport that they themselves are part of. So still they would want some sort of U-turn from Pakistan, because that is to the benefit of the international cricketing community. And I think that's what they're trying to say. So maybe negotiations will be on, but in that circumstances, they don't have any sort of jurisdiction over a cricket board or a government of a country. So they can't take that call. And eventually, if Pakistan don't play India, then they'll have to take a hard call. And remember, ICC is not one individual. ICC is a collection of a lot of other cricketing boards. So I'm sure they're going to have a meeting just as they had in the case of Bangladesh, and everyone sits on the table and then votes what must be done to Pakistan for defying a board like that. Because what ICC wouldn't want is a bad precedent to be set, because from here on, cricket could just go south and every team deciding who they want to play and who they don't.
Yeah, true that. Nikhil, thank you so much for joining us at the very latest on that. Here's hoping more power and perhaps better sense to our politicians, and also, to get and build some consensus. Remember, it was not very long ago when we were discussing the exact same situation with Bangladesh, and we said, what if tomorrow Pakistan behaves like this? And they have. Now we've spoken about what about cricket. It's not just limited to that. There is a lot of cross-country games happening on other sports. What will happen to them? All of those things are to be looked at. But let's try and get a perspective from those who actually have the maximum love for the sport, not just the fan, but also those legends. Here's Nikhil in a conversation with Sunil Gavaskar.
Right, big news coming in from the world of cricket. Pakistan, in fact, the Pakistan government has issued a statement where they've made it clear that they will be participating in the T20 World Cup, but will not play the game versus India that was due to take place on the 15th of February in Colombo, Sri Lanka. Joining us, former India captain, our cricket analyst, Mr. Sunil Gavaskar. Saibhai, firstly, it's come so close to the competition. You're not just a former player, you're a broadcaster as well, someone who keeps a close eye on cricket for many decades. Does this surprise you, this close to the competition, a team decides not to play one particular match?
Not a surprise, because last week itself, or maybe about 8-10 days ago, after the ICC board decided not to accept the Bangladesh request for a change of venue, by only two boards, the Bangladesh board and the Pakistan board, voted against. And at that point, I think the Pakistan board had said that they might not play the tournament. So it was obviously clear that not playing the tournament would cost them very heavily. But opting not to play against India is something that hasn't come as a surprise, because there were hints that they were looking at doing something.
All right, cutting across to some breaking news coming in at this hour, and this has got to do with Mamata Banerjee here in the national capital. She met along with a couple of other members of the Trinamool Congress with the CEC. Now that meeting, what happened inside is going to be later, but first up, they all met. Kalyan Banerjee, Abhishek Banerjee, along with Mamata Banerjee, all met the CEC in black shawls. Also, members of 12 families affected by SIR were also with the TMC in that delegation. You see that all-black delegation, a protest of sorts with which they went and met with the CEC. Remember, the last time when they met, there were also fireworks. So this time around, what exactly happened in the meeting will be interesting to watch out for. Shreya Chatterjee, my colleague, joins us for more on this. Shreya, give us details into what exactly happened inside. We see what was happening outside with those black shawls. Also, jog our memory a little bit into the last time around when Mamata Banerjee had met the CEC. There were again stories of how fingers were raised and volumes were raised. Is बार क्या हुआ है?
Well, Sonal, that is something that we all are waiting with bated breath once she's out of the Election Commission of India. But remember, she's written 6 letters to the CEC before this meet has finally taken place. So there's a lot of things to be exchanged between the both of them. And probably that's the reason the meeting is already stretched for more than an hour right now. Yes, there are a 12-member family delegation along with Mamata Banerjee, Abhishek Banerjee and Kalyan Banerjee. It's a black protest. Each one of them is donning black because they are protesting against the SIR. That's what the message is on the part of the TMC, because they say that this is an exercise which is creating havoc in the state of Bengal. There's a data that we've been shared, Sonal, by the TMC, where they say that there's at least 152 alleged deaths related to SIR that has taken place. Now, this data is what they're also going to present before the Election Commission of India. They have taken with them family members of BLOs who died due to the SIR pressure. They've taken people whose name have been struck off as dead, but they're alive. So those live people have been taken along with them. So these are examples that are being presented before the Election Commission of India directly in the delegation. How Ganesh Kumar and the Election Commission responds is something to wait and watch for. But once she steps out, she's going to speak to the media and detail us about that meeting.
All right, you can bank on that. We can bank on Mamata Banerjee to come out and give us a full minute-by-minute review of what exactly happened, according to her at least. That's what she does. So waiting out for that soundbite as well. Thanks, Shreya, for joining us with the very latest on that. Union Budget 2026 is being pitched as a visionary, future-ready, growth-focused budget. But when it comes to health, the story somehow collapses under scrutiny. Let's start with something basic. India's air. The CPCB, the Central Pollution Control Board, the country's primary environmental watchdog, saw its budget estimated for 25-26 cut in the revised figures. It was last year 126 crore. This year it is 116 crores. Pollution, you would think, is only going up. Why is the budget coming down? For 2026-27, the allocation rises marginally to about 123 crores, still below what was promised just a year ago. The Commission for Air Quality Management created a deal with the public health emergency that kills quietly every winter, and it saw an even sharper rollback. Its 2025-26 budget, estimated for 38.98 crores, was slashed and revised to 31.26 crore. For 26-27, it's been raised to 35.26. Again, not even restoring last year's promise. So when we talk about toxic air, children with inhalers, adults with damaged lungs and hearts, this is what the budget is actually saying. Now, just for perspective, look at healthcare. Yes, the budget had farmer push. Yes, there were tax relief on some cancer and rare disease drugs as well. Those are welcome, but they are not a health strategy, are they? Public health spending rises only marginally. Primary care remains under sort of powered. Preventive health care is barely visible, barely acknowledged or even spoken about. And here is where the global comparison becomes impossible to ignore. Look at that. India and China have similar population roughly, right? About 1.4 billion each. But China spends far more on health per person than its citizens live longer as a result. India spends less. And the outcome is simple. People die younger, families pay more out of their pocket to survive. And this is not geography, this is policy, remember. The difference between an Indian person living 9 years lesser than a Chinese person is not a matter of how your genome makeup is. It's a matter of how healthcare system is designed in our country. But if China example is not making you want to ask your government more about health, then sample this. Compare India to its own neighbors. Let's compare India to Bhopal, to Bhutan, to Nepal, and also Sri Lanka. Much smaller economies, fewer resources, lower global influence as well. But let's go to that graphic for you to see. Yet all of them spend more on health as a share of their budget than India does. All of them. So India spends on healthcare lesser than how much Bhutan does per capita percentage-wise, lesser than Nepal, lesser than even Sri Lanka. One of the world's fastest growing major economies, India still continues and chooses to spend less on health than countries it routinely outpaces in GDP. India continues to hover just about 1% of GDP on public health, far below global norms, far below what Indian experts have recommended for years. In that context, the pollution budget cuts are not bookkeeping, they are public health decisions. Air pollution is a health crisis. We've been screaming about it on the top of our lungs all year round. But pollution control bodies see cuts and clawbacks. Not communicable diseases are rising, right? And an epidemic speed as well. But preventive care remains an afterthought. Healthcare costs are pushing families into poverty, but the budget leans more towards industry incentives than patient protection. This is not about one scheme, not about one announcement. It is about priorities. When the air is poisonous, when hospitals are overcrowded, when doctors are stretched, and when families pay out of their pocket just to stay alive, budget in India is sidelining health completely. And it's not doing it to stay neutral, it's a choice the Indian government is making. And once again, health is not a headline there, it is just a footnote. And that's the real story of the budget, on how the Indian government has again lost yet another opportunity to prioritize health. Health that will also impact our economy directly. We didn't say it, actually Geeta Gopinath said it. But who else is talking about it? I was in conversation with the Lancet editor-in-chief, Dr. Richard Horton, and I asked him about how India's health outlook should be. Listen in to what he said.
Great things that India has achieved, but also great challenges that the report talks about.
Yeah, and we should really celebrate some of the challenges before we get on to the tough stuff. You know, the National Rural Health Mission set out a basic primary healthcare system for the country, which didn't exist before. The creation of ASHAs was probably the single most important intervention that India has made in, honestly, decades, centuries. It's amazing. Yeah. And actually world leading. The idea that you create a cadre of community health workers, fantastic. And I love the fact that ASHAs has got the word activist in, because they are activists for health, and that's what we need. We need more activists for health. But then also the national health strategies that have been created. You know, there's been this consistent commitment over 20 years, and you're the pharmacy of the world. I mean, it is remarkable. But even so, let's be honest, there are some problems. So we do a lot of work in China. 1.4 billion people, just like here, 1.4 billion people. The life expectancy of an average Chinese citizen is 80 years. What's the life expectancy of an average Indian citizen?
70.
Exactly, 71 years. So why should the Indian people expect to live 9 years less than somebody living in China? It's not acceptable. There should be rioting in the streets about the fact that this is an unacceptable challenge, that just needs to be addressed. So I want to see health be top of the political agenda here in India. You mentioned politics earlier, and thank you for doing so, because sometimes health is presented as a very technical issue. It's science, it's doctors, it's boring. It's not. It is highly political, but in a good way. You know, I come from a country, the United Kingdom, where the National Health Service was created after the Second World War. That wasn't a technical success. It was about politics. It was about a new Labour government that came into office in 1945 and wanted to reinvent a country, reinvent the nation after being just destroyed during World War II. And the health service was the way to tell about the renaissance of a country. So what I want to do, and what this commission has done, is to try to tell the story of India through the lens of health. And the story of India through the lens of health during the past 2 decades is one to be immensely proud of. But now, looking over the next generation, the next 20 years, we want to tell a different story, an even better story, a story about the aspirations of young people, about leadership in the world today. And that's what we're trying to offer with this work.
You talk about Story of India. If you had to give it a title, this book of yours, this report of yours, is there a title that comes to mind?
Well, we just did a session at the Jaipur Literary Festival, which I've got to tell you was the best literary festival I've ever been to in the world. Oh my God. I've been to a lot of literary festivals, but this was something else. I mean, this was a carnival of ideas and people, and I learned so much from it, actually. It was just superb. And the title of our session was called The Pulse of a Nation. And I think that's the way we should think about it. What we're trying to do here is to take the pulse of a nation, and what we want to do is to accelerate that pulse of a nation. We want to give...
In fact, you can watch that entire interview on the Health Wealth channel on YouTube as well. But in fact, when I asked him that question on what should be the title, he said, India at the moment is growing at the speed of like Schumacher driving at a very high speed car, but it forgot to wear its seatbelt. That's what health services do, and that's what it's forgotten to do completely. Such an apt example of exactly what's going on. But let me open it up to discussion now. Joining us on this chat is Poonam Mutreja. She's an executive director at the Population Foundation of India. Also with me is Dr. Sujata Rao, former health secretary. Poonam Mutreja, let me come to you very quickly. The health spends on India, we can debate, oh, the numbers are marginally up. But like I said, overall, the health strategy as a country, as a government at the moment, have we understood the importance of health? I mean, this was supposed to be a year when at the World Economic Forum, people were saying, forget US tariffs. Pollution is a bigger problem for India. And yet, government lost that opportunity, didn't it?
So if you look at the budget, clearly health is not a priority, and women's health is certainly not a priority. I mean, a 6% increase in the national health budget will probably offset the inflation. And these allotments support, and for the National Rural Health Mission, or should I call National Health Mission, we have had, again, a 5% increase, but a decrease within that for women's health, reproductive health, family planning, and so on. And it is deeply concerning that family planning welfare allocations are shrinking, even as demographic trends show stark regional variations in fertility and the unmet need for reproductive health choices, and cannot be sustained on stagnant and declining budgets. But having said that, 5% increase, 6% increase is just tokenism when India needs to double its budget, go up to 2.5% minimum. And when we are having catastrophic health issues which have got added because of the pollution. And at this time also, as you were speaking earlier, you know, how can we cut the budgets for pollution from 1,300 to 1,100? My only thinking is whether it's health or pollution, probably the finance minister reduced the budgets. I'm told there was a 40% underutilization. When people are dying, our children are dying and having serious lung issues, for us to reduce the budget or the poor governance where we can't manage our current meager budgets, it is not only shocking, but actually today I realize how poor, forget the budgets only. Or let's not forget the budget. It's not the budget only. It's how poor our governance is. And such a
Strong
missed
words there.
opportunity.
Strong words there by Poonam Mutreja. Dr. Sujata Rao, like I said, if you look at the picture, and I'll, request my producers to pop that graphic again on how much of GDP spends on health India does versus China. We want to compete with China. We want to become China in so many ways. But how can we do that if we've not got our basic healthcare infrastructure in place? What are your thoughts, ma'am, on, and help me understand this, has the government not understood the importance of health? Or is this a case of misplaced priorities?
I don't think so. I think the government has its own mindset of not really supporting public health and primary care. They have given 5 hubs. For example, the finance minister announced setting up for medical tourism. So, who does it serve? Medical tourism, 5 hubs are being set up with corporate hospitals, means the mindset of this government is extremely supportive of strengthening the corporate sector, which does not have space in these public health issues. So I think the government is completely out of sync with what the public health needs are in this country. And I'm so disappointed that I don't want to say anything, because there's just nothing in this budget at a time when health ought to be on top of the agenda. It's just a complete indifference to health and education. Can you imagine that we are spending 1.88% of the whole budget out of 53 lakh crores? You could only earmark 1 lakh for health, which matters to all the people. I mean, I'm not just saying maybe the super rich, but middle classes, forget the poor, the middle classes are today desperate for healthcare and a responsive healthcare. There's so much to be done, and year after year, we let these opportunities go, and it's extremely distressing. This budget really did upset me, because there was absolutely nothing for the common man. I'm not talking about poor also, I'm talking about for me, there's nothing. What does one say? Bit here, a bit there, 3.32 versus I'm not interested in competing with China. I just want basic health care and a good health system for the people of India. We deserve it. We demand for it. After all,
I think the conversation
has some obligation. The state has to have some obligation to its citizens. You can't just dump me in a polluted air. 17 lakh people are dying every year. Does that not hurt you? Does it not hurt you?
Well, the government does not acknowledge that number. They said 0 people died.
50 children die out of contaminated water in this day and age. I mean, I really don't know in which world the government is living. I'm sorry to be saying that, but I'm deeply distressed.
Distressing indeed, ma'am. But Poonam, very quickly, I want to understand from you. When you say that the budget, last year's budget was not spent, I mean, that for me is also a problem. The government has clearly not understood the relationship of health with economics, something that people sitting in Davos understood. A question was asked to Geeta Gopinath on what will Trump tariffs do. She said, forget Trump tariffs, fix your air, that's doing more damage. But this government does not understand that. But at the moment, there are problems with the current system as well. No, that's why the spends are not happening.
But that's why I was saying the poor governance is shocking. And it is shocking at a time when we have the figures, we have the data, how many, Sujata just mentioned, how many people are dying of pollution. And we also not only know that there's a 9-year difference between how long a person lives, longevity in China and India, but it's going to decrease. 9 is going to be a figure we're going to be discussing 11 and 12 soon if this continues. And finally, we have done analysis of PIPs. There is project implementation plans and why money isn't being spent. For instance, we did that for health and especially family planning. We found that budget allocations that are there, money spent, sent at the last minute, just as the fiscal year ends, huge pots of money are spent. And the kind of paperwork that is expected, and also we are at a stage where in India, we just depend totally on, one community health worker in a public health system. But we are not investing enough to bring in doctors. We are not paying, we could have used this
We're not even
40% of the
incentivizing
money
the doctors
to
to do
pay
that.
the doctors better, to pay ANMs, nurses, the lowly paid exploited ashas better. I mean, there are million creative ways to
in which
spend
this
the
can be done.
budget
I
to
have very
improve
little
our
time,
health.
and I want to give the last
Sorry.
word to Dr. Sujata Rao very quickly.
Yes.
I'm sorry to intervene. Ma'am, if you had to allocate the budget this year, what percentage would go to health according to you?
I don't have to, the 2017 National Health Policy had already given a call that for 2025, we should be spending 2.5% of the GDP on health, and 40%, that requires 40% of the central budget should go to health. And against that, what are we spending? 1.88 means it hardly comes to, 1.88% of the budget. So we are so far away from goals that we ascribe to ourselves that I really don't understand how, where are we in terms of, meeting our needs at all. I think we need to reach that goal of at least 2%. We're still at 1.3, 1.2. How long can we? After all, that is what you will get. And no country in the world, except another 15 sub-Saharan countries, spend so low. And this has been going on for decades. So I really think if I were in the finance ministry, I would really want to step up my spending on health and education and employment. I mean, these are the three. And if you add up all the three allocations, they're much lesser than defense. So, somewhere this is a question of prioritization. And I'm afraid health is just deprioritized systematically.
And I don't know what will it take. I don't know if if our ministries are not understanding it. I don't know if the government is not understood it. Is it political or is it systemic? I don't know where this is coming from, but clearly people have had enough. It is,
I think we have to go back to Richard's interview, which you just showed, Richard Horton. There should be riots on the streets for what has happened. And the fact that we don't have, we're not spending the money when everybody is suffering.
I feel you ladies, but that's all the time we have. But I, promise, at least on this show, we'll keep keeping the agenda forward. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you again tomorrow. Bye-bye.